YouTube parts. Welcome back to High Noon Leatherworks. Jack Spade here with another adventure on the stick horse project. So today we're going to go ahead and put the bridle together, and we're going to sew on the mane, and we're going to wrap this project up so we can move on to something else. So come on in and let's get started. So today I will be wearing some gloves because I put the dye on just a little bit ago, just in case. I don't want to get any of that on me. And we'll be using those pre-cut strips. I may need to trim those down a little bit as we go. And we're also using 2 key rings, and that's what they used to make the bridle part here. So everything attaches to those key rings. So we'll take a look at the size of ours because our horse head came out a little bit smaller than the original. So we will have to take a look at the size of the pieces we need. We may need to trim those down. So first thing I'm going to do is put my protective gloves on so I can stay out of that black dye. And we did make the bridle black, try to give a little bit of contrast to the brown horse head. And I will need my small punch for the rivets I'm going to use, and we'll use this small punch, and I'll get my rivets out, and I'll need my setter. I just keep all my hardware in these plastic. These are actually, I bought these at Bass Pro Shop, and I just keep everything separated in there. It makes it really easy to find. You can see through it. So that's how I separate everything and keep it organized. I'm going to set this aside so I can just pick up the pieces that I need and it won't be in the way. So first thing I'm going to do is take a look at this one and see how it's made. They've got a strap on the front like a bit, a strap over the top of the nose, a strap over the top in front of the ear, and then they've got a strap that goes from the side all the way around the back to the other side. And then it finishes off with these 2 longer pieces coming down. So there's nothing really that holds it on to the bottom except for these pieces here. So we're going to start on the front, and let me get my rivet setter out, get it prepared. And then my rivets are right here. I'll just pull them out as I need them. So let's start with one of the smaller pieces. I'll pull these up here. I actually have 3 of them. One for the front, for the bit, one for the top of the nose, and one for the top of the head. The one for the top of the head, it goes behind the eyes in front of the ears, or the ear, would probably be the longest one. So that's the one I'm going to set aside for a second. And I'm going to measure on the horse head that we made around the front and see how far I want to wrap that around that ring. So it looks like it's going to be, if I go about a ½ inch, that's going to be about right. So what I'll do is I'll make up the majority of this bridle, and then we'll go ahead and place it on after it's completed. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and punch a hole in the end of the strap. And I'm punching it right in the center. And this leather's not very thick. So, and this is a super sharp punch, so I really don't need to go too heavy on hitting that punch real hard. And I want to try to keep all these the same, so what I'm going to do is fold that over with the ring in it. Then I'm going to match up that hole and then go ahead and punch through the second piece so I know I have a good straight hole for my rivet. So I'm ready to place my first rivet. So I can put that through the back. I don't know if you could see that where I placed it in there. Then I'll get the top piece and place it on my setter. Push the top down on it. Get the second piece or the top piece, the striker piece of my setter. Hit that a couple of times. Make sure I got a good solid set. And that's what it would look like. There's the front. There's the back. So we'll wrap that around and we'll take our horse again. We'll take a look and see what that's going to look like once I wrap that around and do the other side, how far back. So that gives you an idea how far back that's going to go. That's going to be about right. So we'll go ahead and we'll do the other side the same way, except this time I think I'm going to punch all the way through both sides, because that, again, that leather's thin and this is a sharp punch. I don't think I'm going to have any problem getting through there. No problems getting through two of them at all. So that's not a problem. Now, when you go to do the second end, you got to make sure, first of all, you don't forget your ring. You put your key ring in there. Second of all, you need to make sure you fold it over the correct direction, because you don't want to get one side facing in and one side facing out. Go ahead and grab your rivet and I'll place it through the back. Put it on my setter, the bottom part. Put my top on. And then use the striker piece of the setter. I'm going to hit that one more time. Much better. I'm going to hit the first one, I'm going to hit it again. I was afraid to hit it too hard because the leather is so soft, but it's not hurting the leather. And I want to make sure my rivets are set, that they don't come out. So there's the first piece that goes around the nose. So if we pull that over, and that gives you an idea what it's going to look like. So now we'll move on to the top piece that goes from here around the top of the nose, or the snout. Again, it's going to be the same length as what I used on the front. So basically, all I'm going to do is go through the same rings and fold it to the inside. I want to keep all my folds, all my raw edges to the inside so you don't see those. And again, I'm going to punch through both thicknesses at one time. And again, it's not a problem. It goes through super easy. Put my rivet through the back side. Put it on my bottom part of my setter. Find my top piece. This is a little more difficult to do when you have gloves on. Kind of want to stick to your gloves. So we'll get that on that bottom part. Put the top striker part on the top. We're in good shape there. Now it'll go around the top, and you can see it's starting to take some shape. So let's go ahead and put that through the top piece of the key ring. Punch it. That punch is super sharp. I think I got that particular punch in a kit when I first started doing this from Tandy Leather. I got a tool kit. It had some tools and had a couple of punches, and the hammer was in there, the mallet, and it's been a good little punch. Alright, so there's the front and the top of the bridle. You can see it's starting to take shape. And let's lay it on the horse's snout. Let's see how we're doing. It's looking pretty good. So let's continue on. We're going to have to put the long pieces on next that goes around the head, the back of the head, and head, where those two pieces come together. So I'll just rough it in to make sure it's going to be long enough, and it's going to be plenty long enough there. Kind of out of the shot there. So it's going to be plenty long enough. So I'll go ahead and get this riveted, punched. And this is off of the same bag that I repurposed for this project. Same leather bag that I started with, but it's a little thinner. It came from a different piece of the bag, so it's just a little thinner. It's not going to hurt anything for what it's being used for, but and this had a raw side to it. It did not have it only had one finished side. So you can see that's why I wore the gloves, because the dye on that raw side is not dry yet. So trying not to make a huge mess with this, but we'll see. Alright, so that turned out alright. There's the finished side. And then we'll do the second strip. Put it through the key ring and do the same thing. We'll punch our hole. I'm just barely hitting that. It goes right through. Of course, like I said, it's a pretty thin piece of leather, but it's still going through two thicknesses. So we'll put our rivet in that hole. Get our top piece. And there's the second piece on there. So now we've got the two that come together that'll go around the back of the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the horse head and put the bridle on, which is the top and the front. Then I'll take these longer pieces that I just added, and they're going to go back around, and I want to make sure that they're tight. So I'm going to hold on to that. Those two pieces, I'm going to pop this off the front of the nose and hold those together, and that's where I'm going to punch that and put another rivet. Yeah, I'm making kind of a mess with this dye. I should have let it dry longer. Put the next rivet in to hold those two pieces together. Put the bottom through the back. Put the top on through the front. I'll make sure those two pieces of leather are fairly lined up. And there's my rivet to hold those two pieces together. Now I can trim that off. I don't need all that excess on there. So I ended up with a little bit of excess off of both ends. I was lucky enough to be able to cut that a little long. Better than being short, obviously. Alright, so now the next piece I need to do is the piece behind the eye here. In front of the ears and behind the eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to put this back on this horse head, and what I'll do is I'll put it over the ear first, then I can smash the snout a little bit to pull that down. So there's what it looks like so far. Now we got to do this piece that goes back here and holds this up from the ear back, or the eyes back. So I've got the piece, it's already cut. I just need to know where to place it. And it looks like I'm not going to have, and that's the way they did this. They didn't wrap this because there's no ring. So what they did was they just direct riveted it right here to this piece that comes across here that we just put on. So that's the way we'll do it. So I need to mark that. And I'm going to have to trim that just a hair. And by trimming that, it'll give me a good, clean, sharp edge. On that piece. And then all I have to do is punch through both pieces. And what I'll do is, since it's already black, it's going to be tough to mark on with a marker. I'll just measure how far it is from the rivet. It's 1.5 inches on both sides. So that'll work out perfect. We'll take this back off so we can work with it off of the horse. And we'll go 1.5 inches in from the rivet. And we'll go center to center. And we'll go ahead and punch through both pieces. And place our rivet through the back. Take the top piece, grab the setter, make sure it's square before you set it. Alright, so you can see how I set that through both pieces. Now we'll go across the other way and we'll do the same thing. 1.5 inches. I believe I did it center to center. Take my punch. This one's going to be a lot more critical as far as making sure it's straight when you set the rivet. I know I keep talking about how sharp that punch is, and you can sharpen them or you can have them sharpened, either one. And let's see if I can get this on here square. Maybe a little tricky. And it looks like I did okay. So there's that side. So let's go ahead and put that back on the horse. And let's see. That turned out pretty good. So now I've got my front got the sides, the back. Now all I have to do is put my long pieces on, and those are the reins. So I've got those already pre-cut to length, so all I have to do with those is actually put them on on the ring, the key ring, and I did cut one end to a point so I know which end's which. So we'll set those next, and I'll take this back off. And it's coming together and actually starting to look like a bridle. And these key rings are just the right size. They could have been just a little bit bigger, but the story of the key rings that I'm using, went to a garage sale the other day, and this lady had a whole box of key chains for free. She was giving them away. They were just those old rubbery plastic cheap keychains that had some advertisement on it, and she was just giving the whole box away free. And I was like, I'll take those, cut all the plastic rubbery pieces off, and I'll use the rings for making my own leather keychains, and they're perfect. They're new, so it saved me a ton of money for buying key rings. So be on the lookout for that, where you can repurpose things like that and get it free or cheap. There's one side completed. Now let's move to the other side. When you get these on, what that's going to do is, I think that's really going to, with that key ring, the size that it is, it's going to stabilize all those pieces in the right place. So, need to punch that one. And one more rivet. So it took several rivets to put this together, so much quicker than sewing it by hand, starting and stopping. And so by using rivets, it's quicker. It's going to be strong. So there it is. Let's go ahead and put it on the horse head, and let's see what we have here. Got it on there backwards. There we go. I have the reins. I have the completed bridle on there, all the way around. Turned out good. So that completes the bridle part. Next thing we do is sew the mane on. So let me get ready for that, and I'll be right back. What we're going to do is, I'm going to take this braided cord. I just braided it into a little mane, so it has, give it a little character on the back. So I'm just going to tack it in a couple of places. Probably up here toward the top, right behind the ear, and then on down toward the bottom down here, toward the head, at the bottom of the head. So tack it in a couple of places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pointed needle and believe I'm just going to use some artificial sinew, and I'm not going to make any special type of stitch or anything. I'm just going to run it through. I am going to double my thread, so it will be 2 thicknesses, and then I'll just tie it off. There's no reason, it's not holding 2 pieces of leather together or anything, so there's no reason to put a locking stitch or anything like that in there. So I'll take this, put it up here close behind the ear, and I am gonna, it should be fairly easy to poke through that leather. It's thin leather, and then also that needle, it's not super sharp, but it's fairly sharp. It comes to a point. So what I'm going to do, make sure I get through there without poking myself, is I'm going to take a pair of tiny needle nose and you can see where that needle's going to come through this other side. So I'll just keep working that needle with those needle nose pliers until it pokes through. So it just poked through this side. I'll pull that through. And I'm going to leave about 2 inches hanging out the other side of my thread, and I'll actually go through the mane where I've knotted it. In fact, I think I'll just go through there once. Let's see how that works. Try to go through the same exact hole that you went through the first time. Go back through it. Again, you may need to take needle nose pliers to pull that through, and you can see that pulled that down tight against the head. So that's one. I'm going to give it one more stitch through the same hole again. I don't want to take any chances that one stitch wouldn't do it. I can't imagine that sinew not holding that good and tight. And then again, I left 2 inches on the other end here when I first started. So I'm going to cut my thread off and go ahead and tie that off into a knot under the knot that's on the mane, on that braided cord. And I'll tie that as tight as I possibly can, and then trim off any excess. And with that color of sinew, artificial sinew, it should blend right in. So I don't even think you can see it. It's right here underneath that knot. So there's our first one. We'll bring this down. We'll do another one down here at the bottom. And I'll have to put a new thread on. Again, I'll double it, just like I did on the top. leave a couple of inches hanging out when I go through this leather on the bottom. And that makes it a little bit easier because I'm going through leather that's down by the stitches that are already in it. So it just poked through one of my stitching holes that I had on the machine. So that's going to make it a little bit easier. And again, I'll go through the mane, the braid, just to make sure that I have a good grip on it. And then back through the same hole again. You can see with that hole is already stitched there, it's going through a lot easier than what the first one did with there not being a hole there. Pull that tight, and then one more time. Pull that good and tight. I'll cut this thread off of my needle. Set that aside, and then go ahead and tie your knot. Now this knot may be a little more obvious that you may see just because you don't have a knot in the mane there. It's down lower. But I still don't think, once you trim these off, you're still not going to see. Still not going to see that. It's just not going to be noticeable. It's right here. And the other one's right here. So there's the mane. We completed it. So here's the original one. Here's the one we did. A little smaller horse head, a little shorter stick, but same idea. The grandkids will love it. They'll play with this for hours. So heck, I might too, who knows. So it's finished, another project in the books, and come back next week and we'll start a new project. So as I always say, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.